And we have a music as well, so the canvas actually has a frequency tied to it. So that will be higher frequency, that will be lower frequency. And when you fire a wave, you get music, quantum music. So that's, what is it, Mozart meets Schrödinger. How good is that?
Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right into the deep end today, looking at something that really stretches the mind. The connection, or maybe the lack of connection, between our brains, our consciousness, and, well, this super strange world of quantum mechanics. It can feel overwhelming, I know, but stick with us. We'll try to unpack the important bits. And maybe the best place to start is with something you hear a lot about, the double-slit experiment. People often think it proves, that just by consciously observing something, we change reality.
Right. That's a really common interpretation, but it's a misconception. The double-slit experiment is fascinating, absolutely, but it doesn't actually show consciousness itself affects quantum outcomes.
Okay, so what does it show then?
It shows that measurement changes things, or any kind of physical interaction, really. So you fire single particles, like photons, one by one through two slits. If you just let them land on a screen behind the slits, they create this wave-like interference pattern, like ripples overlapping.
Yeah, the wave behavior.
Exactly. And here's the kicker, if you put a detector there to see which slit each photon goes through.
To measure it.
To measure it right. Then boom, the interference pattern disappears. They just act like tiny particles, making two distinct bands on the screen. No more waves.
And that just feels so weird, doesn't it? Why would just looking at, or measuring, make it switch from a wave to a particle? Our everyday world doesn't work like that.
It absolutely feels weird to our classical intuition, but observation or measurement here just means any physical interaction. It inevitably disturbs the system. Think of the particle before measurement not as a little ball, but as a spread out wave of possibilities, a wave function.
A probability cloud.
Sort of, yeah. And when you interact with it, measure it, that cloud, that wave function, it sort of collapses into one definite state at one specific place. It's a core feature of quantum mechanics, described really well by things like QED, quantum electrodynamics. It's not magic or mind power, it's just how quantum systems behave when poked. No consciousness required,
Okay. So the double slit isn't proof of mind over matter. Got it. But that just leads us back to the big one. If it's not the observer effect like that, then where does consciousness come from? What are the main ideas out there?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Our sources touch on the main philosophical camps. The dominant view in science currently is materialism.
Brain equals mind.
Pretty much. Consciousness arises from the physical complexity of the brain. Simple as that. Or, well, not simple at all in practice, but the principle is physical. Then you have dualism. Think René Descartes. Mind and body are fundamentally different things. Consciousness is non-physical, existing separately.
Which brings up the whole how do they interact problem, right? The mind-body problem.
Exactly. How does ghost stuff push around meat stuff, basically? Then there's panpsychism.
Panpsychism. Sounds like everything is conscious.
Sort of. It's the idea that consciousness isn't special to brains, but a fundamental property of matter itself. Maybe even down to, like, electrons having some very, very basic form of experience.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an old idea that's seen a bit of a resurgence. Some philosophers think it might help tackle the hard problem. Why does brain activity feel like something from the inside? Why is there subjective experience, or qualia?
Qualia, right? The redness of red.
Exactly. And finally, there's idealism. This one flips materialism completely on its head.
How so?
Idealism says consciousness is primary. The physical world, the universe, actually arises from consciousness, not the other way around. It's definitely a more controversial view, sometimes linked, again, controversially, to certain quantum interpretations.
Okay, that's a huge range, from brain chemicals to the universe being fundamentally mental. So let's focus now. Are there theories trying to directly link quantum physics to how consciousness works, going beyond just analogies?
Oh, yes, definitely. And probably the most famous, or maybe infamous, depending on who you ask, is the Penrose Hameroff Orchestrated Objective Reduction model, usually just called Orch-OR.
Penrose, the physicist, right, and Hameroff, the anesthesiologist.
That's them. Penrose started from a mathematical argument based on Gödel's incompleteness theorems, concluding that human understanding, our conscious insight, must be non-computable, something a standard computer could never achieve.
non-computable, meaning not just following rules or algorithms.
Right, so he needed a physical process in the brain that was also non-computable. He proposed something called objective reduction, or OR. It's a specific type of quantum wave function collapse, not random like standard interpretations, but determined by reaching a certain threshold related to the fundamental structure of space-time geometry itself, way down at the Planck scale. Tiny, tiny scales.
Space-time geometry causing quantum collapse. Okay, my brain hurts already. Where does Hameroff come in?
Hameroff provided the biological location. He suggested microtubules. These are protein structures inside neurons, like scaffolding.
I've heard of those, part of the cell's skeleton.
Exactly. He proposed that proteins within these microtubules, called tubulins, can exist in quantum superposition states. They act like quantum bits or qubits.
In the warm, wet brain, how?
Well, that's the big question. He points to specific water-repelling pockets within the tubulins where quantum effects, governed by subtle London forces, might be shielded enough to maintain coherence for a short time.
Okay, shielded pockets and the orchestrated part.
That refers to biological feedback loops, maybe involving other proteins attached to the microtubules, that could supposedly influence or orchestrate these quantum computations, guiding the collapse outcomes. This, they argue, could allow for actions that aren't just determined or random, potentially opening a door for something like free will.
Free will from microtubules.
Yeah. And Orch-OR aims high. It tries to explain qualia, the binding problem, how different brain signals create one unified experience, the shift from unconscious processing to conscious awareness, non-computability, free will, the whole package.
It is incredibly ambitious, mind-bending, really. What's the general scientific vibe on Orch-OR? Is it, accepted?
Not widely, no. It faces major criticism. The biggest one, as you hinted, is decoherence.
Things falling apart too quickly.
Exactly. The brain is warm, wet, and noisy. Most physicists, like Max Tegmark, for instance, argue that any delicate quantum states in something as large as a microtubule would decohere almost instantly, far too fast to be relevant for conscious thought processes, which happen on much slower timescales. Nerve signals are just too big, too classical.
So the quantum effects would just get washed out by the biological noise.
That's the main argument, yeah. It's often criticized, sometimes quite harshly labeled as woo or pseudoscience, because the proposed mechanisms seem physically implausible to many, and there's a lack of direct experimental evidence confirming its core tenets.
Even Penrose admits it's beyond current physics.
He does. He acknowledges it requires physics we don't fully understand yet, particularly around quantum gravity and objective reduction. So until that are testable predictions that get confirmed, it remains highly speculative, on the fringes.
Right, so if Orch-OR is pretty fringe, are there other ways quantum ideas are applied to the brain, maybe less extreme ways?
Yes, absolutely. And it's really important to distinguish here. There's a big difference between quantum mind theories like Orch-OR, which claim consciousness is literally a macroscopic quantum phenomenon.
And something else.
And quantum cognition. This is quite different. Quantum cognition uses the mathematics of quantum theory, things like superposition, interference, entanglement, as a tool to model cognitive processes.
So it's using the math as an analogy, not saying the brain is literally doing quantum physics.
Exactly. It suggests our brains might process information in ways that are analogous to quantum systems. Think of waves of neural activity interfering, multiple possibilities being weighed simultaneously, context influencing decisions in ways that classical probability struggles to explain. But these effects are assumed to arrive from classical neural dynamics, maybe electrochemical waves across networks, not actual quantum coherence in microtubules or anything like that. It's a modeling framework.
Okay, that seems less controversial. Are there other physical theories besides Orch-era?
There was an earlier idea called quantum brain dynamics, QBD, back in the 60s, proposing coherent quantum waves across cells. But more recently, one of our sources details the quantum classical model of brain dynamics, the QC model.
Quantum classical, so a mix.
Precisely. This model doesn't try to explain all of consciousness with quantum mechanics. Instead, it focuses on specific situations where a few inherently quantum variables might interact with and influence the larger, mostly classical environment of the brain.
What kind of quantum variables?
Things that are quantum even at room temperature, like electrons tunneling across barriers, protons moving, the spins of nuclei or electrons, certain electronic states in molecules like phenyl rings found in neurotransmitters, maybe even photons interacting with neurons.
And these tiny quantum things could actually affect the big picture.
That's the proposal. Through a few mechanisms, maybe causing non-smooth jumps between energy states or influencing things through the inherent randomness of wave function collapse or via the electromagnetic fields these quantum particles generate. They also mention Schrödinger's idea of order from order, how quantum mechanics helps explain the stability of molecules like DNA, suggesting a kind of quantum underpinning for biological information and maybe even synchronizing processes like quantum clockwork.
Interesting. And this connects to psychology too.
Yes, the proponents find motivation there. They point to psychological theories suggesting we operate with a kind of dual logic. Classical logic for the everyday world, but maybe a quantum-like logic for deeper, more uncertain aspects of the psyche. They reference ideas like Jung and Pauli's synchronicity or Blanco's bilogic.
So the idea is our mind reflects this quantum classical reality.
Kind of, yeah. The QC model aims to build multi-scale models using simulations as thought experiments to see how these specific localized quantum effects might plausibly influence things like how ion channels work in neurons, or how brain stimulation affects us. It's more focused, more bottom-up than Orch-OR.
That sounds like a more grounded approach, trying to build bridges rather than leap across the chasm.
It's certainly trying to be more connected to testable biology and physics, yes.
Which brings us to one final idea from our sources, and this one sounds pretty wild. The claim that quantum entanglement could mean the mind lasts forever.
Ah, yes, that's a theory proposed by an independent researcher, Wang Xinye. The title is quite direct. Quantum entanglement enables the mind during lifetime to exist forever.
Okay, how does that supposedly work?
Well, the argument draws parallels between features of brain activity, specifically electrical impulses or brain waves, and characteristics of quantum entanglement, things like superposition, non-local connection, seemingly instantaneous links.
So brain waves behave like entangled particles.
That's the assertion. The proposed mechanism involves brain waves being somehow converted into a quantum entangled electromagnetic wave, like a carrier signal.
A carrier wave for the mind.
Essentially, yes. And the claim is this wave could travel through space, be detected, recorded, and retrieved independently of distance.
And therefore, immortality.
The conclusion drawn is that the mind encoded in this wave could persist indefinitely. It's important to stress, though, this is presented in a review article by one researcher, like Orch-OR. It's a very strong claim about quantum effects operating at a biological scale, and it would face, immense scrutiny regarding physical plausibility and require extraordinary evidence. It's definitely out there on the speculative edge.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today, from the double-slit experiment all the way to potentially immortal quantum minds. It's quite a journey.
It really is, and it just underscores how scientists are constantly pushing at the edges of what we know about the brain, about consciousness. It's such a deep mystery. I think the key takeaway, really, is seeing the difference between theories claiming consciousness is quantum, like Orch-OR, and approaches using quantum math as a tool, like quantum cognition, or those carefully exploring specific quantum classical interactions, like the QC model.
That distinction seems crucial.
It is, and it shows the scientific process trying to build testable hypotheses, even for very difficult questions, focusing on specific mechanisms rather than just grand pronouncements.
So after all that, what's the big question left hanging for you, our listener?
Maybe it's this. We live in a time where quantum gets thrown around a lot, often mixed up with vague ideas of mysticism or potential. How do you navigate that? How do we stay curious about these incredible frontiers because they are fascinating, while also holding on to scientific rigor and critical thinking? That balance feels pretty important as we try to figure out, ourselves.
Okay, unless we have any questions from humans. There's a human in the loop, so if you have any questions, everything we do is eventually available on BioniChaos.com. All the code is on the site, available for you for free. It's all open source, open access. Go check it out. Check out the website. The links are in the chat somewhere. And let us know what you think. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the live stream tomorrow. Pretty much live streaming every day, so don't miss out. Go check out the website, and next time we are live streaming, you can we can discuss your experience using the website. Or you can just pop any questions in any of the socials, and I'll touch base on it, touch upon it during the next live stream. If I don't forget, but join in as well the live stream to remind me.